This was in the inauguration speech, January 20th, 1997. The wrong kind of faith leads, this is a president saying this, the wrong kind of faith leads to division and conflict. Prejudice and contempt, cloaked in the presence of religion or political convictions, are no different. These forces have nearly destroyed our nation in the past. We shall overcome them. We shall replace them with a generous spirit of a people that feel at home with one another, or a more politically correct person is what it's saying. One that might believe that we all love each other, that there is no, we all just lay down everything, and it really does away with convictions. And if you know anything about our heritage, I was thinking of the song when I wrote this, as he who died to make men holy, let us die to make men free. But let me just say, let's live to make men free. We need people to stand up for their convictions today. We have nobody that's willing to stand. We have that 22,000 people, or we have that whole Israeli army. Every time Goliath stands up there, they all head out for their tent. We don't see people standing up for the convictions for their children's sake. We don't see people willing to stand for righteousness and holiness and purity because of fear. It's the same thing. They through the press and through other things, they brought this fear about, and it's just destroying us. There won't be anything you don't do in business that won't be collected and analyzed by the government. The national infrastructure is a better surveillance mechanism than Orwell or the government would have ever imagined. This thing is so pervasive, and the propensity to connect it is so great that it is unstoppable. Most of this shift in privacy policy is apparently being done by executive order at the initiative of the bureaucracy without a congressional oversight and concurrence. They are not likely to fail. Orwell said the bureaucrats simply do what bureaucrats do without motive or intent. They will use technology to enslave the people. This guy worked for a media digital company. He knows all about technology. Remember, Clinton talked about the magic of the technology. Well, these are some of the cameras out in California. They shoot down on the cars. When you get your digitized license, new license, driver's license, those things go into a national computer. This thing can pick up your facial features as you pass this particular point. They're all over Southern California. Everywhere you took, sometimes as many as 5 cameras per corner. That's what those round circles are. They say that we have problems with drugs and guns, so we got to stop it. So we're going to make sure they put these cameras out to make sure where everybody's going. This is really not the update technology, but it is some of the technology that was in the LA Times out there. If they put them on tops of police cars. They're about the size of a shoebox. They can shoot it at a group of people standing there. They can take a scanner, point it at people. They can tell whether they're male or female. They can tell what's behind, what clothing they wear, and everything else about them. So you can see they have some technology. They can shoot it at a house a half block away. They can listen to what the people are saying. They know what they're talking about. They know how many males and how many females in the room. It literally undresses you, this technology. There's no more privacy anymore. You can't go hide in some cave anymore. Let's listen to see if this gentleman, again, is saying the same things that I said when I'm talking about this, the conditions of this country and who they're definitely going to bring into slavery here in a very short time.
I think that America could be plunged into the Dark Ages. This move towards political correctness, this legislation that allows the president to declare anyone that's critical of government as a hate criminal. The anti-terrorism bill has removed the Bill of Rights. We have the same mechanics in place that enabled the Nazis to do what they did in Germany. When the Nazis banged down a door in the middle of the night and took a family off, they did nothing illegal. They always operated in the color of law, and those same laws are now in place in this country. Our religious freedoms are rapidly being abridged. It's no longer fashionable to be a Christian. You're on lists that are labeled as a dangerous terrorist. There are lists going around Washington that describe what dangerous terrorists look like. They have an excessive preoccupation with the Bible. They're obsessed with the second coming of Jesus Christ. They homeschool their kids. They store extra food in their garage. And on it goes. It sounds awfully familiar as you look down those lists. It's possible. The tide that we begin to see happen may get worse. And I think there may be some of us in this room that will have the opportunity to give their life for the gospel of Christ in a very dramatic way. Those days may come again. Where do we get the arrogance to presume that we will be spared what most of the body of Christ and most of the world have had to endure for most of the last 1900 years? So let's recognize something else. You and I are in a warfare. And the warfare has already begun. It's spiritual warfare, and you are on enemy ground.
Okay, we've talked about the executive orders and the fact that the president can create laws. It was all under the War Powers Act of 1970. Then in March 1933, we modified it. I say 93 up there, but it meant 1933. We modified it to include economic as well as political crisis, where we could bring in this War Powers Act. These are some of the executive orders that the President Clinton, these are just the titles of these executive orders I mentioned during his first 4 years in office. He's basically said he was going to run it by dictatorial power, and that's what he's doing. This here was probably one of the most, it's just horrible when I first read it, and I still think it's horrible because it's basically the taking away of your children from you. It was an executive order passed by President Kennedy back in 1961. It says the seizure of all American population to workforces under federal supervision, including dividing families as necessary according to governmental plans. That's in case of an economic crisis. It empowers the Postmaster General to register all men, women, and children in the United States, and it's a seizure of all housing and finance authorities to establish forced relocation. So they can do this in case there's a stock market crash on Monday. They could divide you and your family. They could take your house from you. They could take your food away from you. These are all law. They were passed in '61, and they've been on the laws ever since then. Hitler did the exact same thing after they burned down the Reichstag building in 1933, where ours were passed in 1933 also, just a few days after that. Ours were March 9th, theirs were February 28th. Here's the Department of Army memo. You might have already seen this. This was been out a number of times, but it says that they want to know from the installation commanders, they want to know the procedure for preparing requests to establish civilian prison camps on the installations. So they want to know, if you're a commander of that base, they want to know what you're going to do in case the civilians start arriving and how you're going to prepare these civilian prison camps on these installations. Here's Senate Bill 269 that Bob Dole passed that literally provided the funds and made it legal to have these prison camps. They called it under illegal immigrants. They called them detention centers, but it's the same thing. Once there's a detention center, it can be turned into a prison camp used for anybody they want to use it for. So that was passed. Civil Affairs, FM 4110, speaks of, it says, first of all, at the bottom, it says get rid of this thing in any way you possibly want to. It shows how to route people around in case on the trucks to take them to the right places. These are some of the tag markers that are behind the backside of signs of various parts of the United States to tell the truck drivers where to go with the people. Right here is one of the camps themselves, just a layout in that FM 4110. You can see how similar it is to this Dachau in Nazi Germany. What bothered me about this is you look in the back, there's houses. Those ashes from the human beings were being spread throughout the area. Many of those people went to church on Sunday. They heard the gospel. They did everything that we're doing today, yet they came out and dusted the ashes off their cars and off their suits and everything else. We're doing the same thing this Christmas when we held up our hands and said, Lord, I love you. The blood was dripping from our hands and we're saying nothing about it. So they don't have anything on us or we don't have anything on them. They're literally, we're doing the exact same thing they did in Nazi Germany. It's just that our Holocaust is taking place with much younger creation of God. Is this possible? Well, this was an article I read in December 30th, 1995. Again, I eat at this place called Norm's, and that day I spent crying. And as I read about these women that were multiply raped by the soldiers at this Bosnian concentration camp, and that the men were taken and killed and with the genocide. The same thing here in Chechnya. Here's a man looked for his 18-year-old and 21-year-old son. Said he finally pulled them out he said he finally found them dead on a heap of corpses. He pulled them out and they had been executed and they had been mutilated. Then they carted them off to camps known as military jargon as filtration points. Well, this is an American version of a filtration point. It's called the Federal Transfer Center out of Oklahoma City and various other places in the United States. All they do is they pull the planes up to these things, they unload the people, and they load the people back on the side. This is a federal prison facility in Oklahoma City.